Greetings, everyone. And today's program is really in honor of Veterans Day, which happened yesterday. There's always a program at the Victory Arch ever since May of 1919. And there's always been a ceremony on November 11th, 1919, then called Armistice Day. Veterans Day honors all those who served in the military. And this Victory Arch is actually honoring veterans who gave their lives on behalf of our nation's efforts to expand democracy everywhere. Now, there's a lot of reasons why we're going to get a Victory Arch. Number one is that we are the Hampton Roads Port of Embarkation. Over 750,000 people will actually pass through the Victory Arch coming back from war. So that would make the number slightly different. I have to say the Victory Arch wasn't constructed until actually we'll get into the story, but May of 1919. And so Newport News changes in such a tremendous way. As Thomas Wolfe said, there were strange rumors of a land of El Dorado to the north, amid the war industry of the Virginia coast. Some of the students had been there the year before. They brought back stories of princely wages. One could earn $12 a day with no experience. One could assume the duties of a carpenter with only a hammer, saw, and square. No questions were asked. Well, the shipyard, of course, is one of our major activities that we do here in Newport News. This is July 4th, 1918. Now remember, look at all the crowds. This is during the Spanish flu epidemic. So the epidemic back then kind of had a drop and didn't raise up its ugly head again until September. So, but this is Victory Launching Day, or Liberty Launching Day. Three, of course, destroyers are being built. Now, America's drawn into this war primarily because of our investment in the Allied war effort, as well as our, I think there are two factors where the Germans kind of messed up. One was the sinking of the Lusitania. Actually, the president of the shipyard, Albert Hopkins, will go down on the Lusitania. He's going to be replaced by Homer Ferguson. Also, what is known as the Zimmerman telegram, where Germany sends a nice little telegram, says, hey, we'll probably go to war with the United States, and don't you want California and Texas back? That never happened, but the Americans sat on that information for quite a while. And so this was these are significant things that are impacting America. So many people will move to Newport News during the war. The populations triple. We see that there's not enough housing. So there are visual impacts of the war that you can drive around and see on the peninsula. One is Hilton Village, of course, built for housing for the shipyard. Another one was, I would have to say, the warehouses behind Warwick Village Shopping Center. They're all World War I warehouses, because that was the site of what was known as Camp Morrison. And in fact, when you wrote a letter to a worker at Hilton Village, until they set up their own post office that would be noted Morrison, Virginia. So this is a town that becomes really so involved with the war after. The port of Embarkation is, of course, one of two major ports of embarkation that are going to serve sending troops to Europe. And this is a view of Camp Stewart, the largest camp in Newport News, next to Camp Eustis. Camp Eustis was called a camp, but is really an artillery training place and filled with schools. That's why it's going to become a fort eventually. A lot of the soldiers that come through Newport News, and you see here it is, a major industrial towns, fantastic port facilities. It's almost as if Collis Potter Huntington had planned Newport News to be ready for any world war. Now, because we have all these soldiers coming to Newport News, we have to deal with them in some way. And by saying we have to deal with them, you know, here they are, lonely soldiers. So, you know, there are Red Cross workers, United Jewish Women, volunteers from everywhere. And they would be down at the docks giving a cup of coffee and a donut. That is the reason why they're called doughboys. And, you know, everything we can do. This is the part of the casino grounds. And this is where they would have chaperone dances for the soldiers. And because not everyone liked to be stuck in these camps waiting for transportation overseas. In fact, two soldiers that were stationed in Newport News wrote this ditty. Oh, Newport News blues is the latest fad. Newport News blues will surely drive you mad. You start into jazz, then you razzmatazz. Oh, way down south in the land of cotton, your Uncle Sam has not forgotten. You're away, far away from Broadway. They sing and dance that haunting melody. Oh, when you're down in Newport News, what are they going to play that doggone blues for? The blues of Newport News. Oh, the news. So, you know, so groups like the YMCA will expand. Once again, they're providing books. They're doing everything they can because this mass influx, you know, as I said, over 750,000 men are coming in and out of Newport News. That's changing everything. The workforce is doubling in Newport News, which changes their housing as we looked at Hilton Village. Hilton Village was a unique wartime housing project that basically integrated various aspects of the suburban movement, also known as the Garden City movement. And the Garden City movement was all about building homes away from the dirt and grime of the industrial complex so that people could go out with tree-lined streets and feel as if they're in a different world. And so that became very, very important. So that's why these extra houses and everything are being constructed. And so that makes it very important. Now, of course, the Victory Arch is a tremendous thing. You know, the Victory Arch is itself going to be planned as a result of the war effort in Newport News. You know, Newport News, being an industrial center, made lots of money, and some of that money is actually going to be skimmed out of the pockets of the GIs that are visiting. In fact, it was so bad that on November 11th, 1918, there is a huge riot. Soldiers, they get into a little liquor, they're having great fun, and that they now want to take out vengeance on certain stores that they felt overpriced them. And so this is shocking to Newport News. This is called the Battle of Newport News. And it is shocking to them primarily because they have, you know, of course, war profiteering is what war is about in some ways, but the soldiers were upset despite the hostess houses, despite the YMCA. You can go to the YMCA in 1 month, they fed 20,000 warm meals. Now, just think, you know, I want to eat the YMCA because it has better food than you get on where? The Army camps. And the Army camps were stretched everywhere in Newport News. So I have to say that the Victory Arch is something that was established by the Welcome Home community. And here you see after the armistice, soldiers marching down the C&O pier, and they actually came right up at 26th Street, where City Hall, Newport News is, and then they turn on Washington Avenue and march down. Well, I have to tell you, the Welcome Home Committee was so concerned about the Battle of Newport News that they banded together because they knew they had to do something to honor those soldiers. Newport News had expanded because of all these soldiers, and so consequently, how do we thank them? And Robert Bickford, who's the shipyard attorney, and several other leading citizens will decide that they need to build the Victory Arch. This is a unique aerial photograph of getting ready for one of the main days that we're celebrating the Victory Arch. Now, I got to tell you, the Victory Arch was made of plaster and wood. Many thought it was just going to be a temporary facility. And so basically it was written quickly. And the great line on the top, look, this is what this Victory Arch is all about. This is the crowd of surrounding the return of Battery D. Battery D of the 29th Infantry Division was made up of Hampton and Newport newsboys. So, you know, we really want to share them on. People in the crowd says, there he is. And you know, it was overjoyed. You see, the arch was dedicated on 13 April 1819. Just in time for us to be able to welcome home our various heroes that had gone over there. And of course, Battery D was part of the Blue-Gray Division. And yet there was another regiment with the Blue-Gray Division, the 116th Infantry Regiment, which had one company known as the Huntington Rifles. Oh, yes. The Huntington Rifles were like well up. And I want to tell you, and I have to pause. and we're going to go more into this, but this is a victory medal that was forged for white soldiers returning. You have to realize we had a huge African American soldier contingent in Newport News. They had their own camp, which was called Camp Alexander, named for John Hanks Alexander, one of the first African Americans to graduate from West Point. So, but as these soldiers, when they came, oh my gosh, guess what they got? They got this medal. This is a thankful town. This is a town that owes its really primary existence to these people. I think one of the most touching things of this arch, you see a band marching through. The Huntington Rifles will return on 20 May 1918. Throngs of people arrive. I have to tell you, it was one of the biggest events. And so this is amazing because here we have bands marching the soldiers back down to the camps, and this actually Charles Epps flew overhead and took these photographs in a Curtis Jenny airplane. He will later crash and die, but it was said there were 40,000 people there on May 20th, welcoming home those local doughboys. But one thing I think is so stirring is if you look at the top of the arch, and it's symbolized after the Arch de Triomphe in Paris. Arches are something that date back to the Greco-Roman times, and so they're normally called victory arches, and so that's exactly what we have here. Robert Bickford wrote the inscription that you see: "Greetings with love to those who return, a triumph with tears to those who asleep." So this victory arch had double goals: goal welcoming old soldiers, goal to honor those who perished during World War I, and especially local soldiers. So I got to tell you, the biggest event is going to be on May 25th, when more of the 111th Division battery will return with the 29th Infantry Division. We had some high rollers there, including Governor Westmoreland Davis, also Secretary of Treasury Carter Glass, and Congressman Otis S. Bland. And there was an estimated 40,000 people there. So basically, we're going to see that all these soldiers are coming back, and it's going to start to have an impact as the Victory Arch will remain exactly where it was. And I think it actually started to deteriorate. And so it was repaired at different times, but it was still not a permanent arch. But we have another war, which is World War II. So once again, the Victory Arch is going to serve other purposes. Number one, there is a plaque put up on the Victory Arch honoring all those soldiers who perished during World War II, or World War I. Once World War II was over, it also welcomed the soldiers home. And you can see the arch right there. You can see the broad street that actually formed down into the James River. beautiful spot. And so they would have parades and everything there. But you can't see it in this picture, but the commercialism got so great, there were gas stations next to each side of the Victory Arch. So that was a little different for me. So the Victory Arch, however, has a way of outliving everything. And it just so happens that when they noticed the Victory Arch was really falling apart, Dorothy Rouse Bottom, Delegate Lewis Archer McMurrin, got together to fund a, look at these hostesses. Oh my gosh. This is what the Victory Arch and the hostess houses next to the arch were all about, welcoming these soldiers home, and they did so in an admirable way. And it was big news always in the daily press. Here's what we want to look at. So this is a big check being delivered by William E. Bullitt. He will become president of the shipyard. There's Dorothy Rouse Bottom. Next to her is going to be Robert Cutler of the Fund Drive, and of course, Lewis Archer McMurrin. Now, they decided to build this arch out of granite to make it permanent, and the fundraising set a goal of $2,500. And they wanted to ensure that they had these bronze plaques on the side. You can see they're mounting the plaques right there. And they wanted to have these plaques on the Victory Arch, honoring every one of those soldiers, because every year on November 11th at 11 o'clock, they participate in an event at the Victory Arch to honor those who perish in defense of our liberties. I have to tell you, they raised all the money so quickly. Dorothy Bottom is highly motivated because her husband used to be a Coast Artillery captain and then a commander in the Navy, had passed away. And so she felt this was something she wanted to do. Now, the Victory Arch, you can see how the memorial plaques are being honored. And this is how the Victory Arch looked before the ceremony honoring the death of President Dwight D. Eisenhower. Now, I have to say, a lot has changed since the Victory Arch was first built. Number one, there became a controversy in the, let me say that the Braxton Perkins Post 25 decided, oh my gosh, we need to put an internal flame there because we're honoring these soldiers. And they added to the bronze plaques. However, they gathered the name in somewhat of a haphazard fashion. So one day in the 80s, I got a call from my boss. I was then director of the Virginia War Museum. Who do you know is on that arch? And I said, well, I'm not sure, but we can surely find out because we can get the service records for everybody. So I had to make a presentation to Kent because this one woman, Shawn Brown, had said that the Victory Arch had no African Americans on it. Ooh. Well, that started a detailed research project with my staff undertook. Actually, you got the soldier records of everybody. And so You knew who they were. And then we also, to make sure we're not missing anybody, we sent out flyers in the newspaper saying, hey, if you know someone who died in World War II from our region, send us the information. Well, it proved that Sean Brown didn't know what she was talking about, because there were several African Americans uh, on the Victory Arch. Some may have not been, should have been there. There was one man, African American, who got shot in a jewelry heist in New York City, and yet he died while in service. So there he goes. There's a controversy about one person getting their name on there, because he did not die overseas. He died in a plane wreck while testing a bomber. Well, eventually they put his name on. So these are really neat facts when you think about there are all these facts. So what we did, we found all sorts of other people we needed to put plaques up for. And so now we believe the archives at the Virginia War Museum has the complete collection, soldiers' records, everything about each name that's on the arch. The arch, however, did not solve the questions of many other veterans, particularly the Vietnam veterans. Vietnam veterans by the mid 1980s had become somewhat disillusioned with how other veteran organizations were treating them. And based on the protest movements and other aspects of the war in Vietnam. The veterans, after Sean Brown had gone down there, says, I want to make sure they're African Americans on the arch. We proved that they were. And then the Vietnam veterans show up and say, we want to have our names on the arch, and we want a monument to go with the Victory Arch. Oh my gosh, this is a big controversy going on in Newport News. Everyone worried about getting their names on the arch. So while the project to double check who is on the arch and where they came for was completed, we also were able to add those names of the Vietnam veterans. But the Vietnam veterans said that's not enough, because of what we did, who we were as we did it, and the unfavorable reception we received upon our return. We want our own monument. And so they actually, and I helped them set up a Vietnam Memorial Commission, which then State Senator Bobby Scott got to be the official Vietnam War memorial to all those who perished. That monument was erected in 1992, I believe. Beautiful seat wall, and of course it had a internal flame. And so this prompted several other monuments to be built to those people that many veterans felt were overlooked. The submariners of the U.S. Navy during World War II, the victims of the Holocaust, the four chaplains who tragically went down on the SS Dorchester and gave their lives for others to be saved, and they were from each a different denomination. So, we have to look at this one great thing that the Victory Arch shows us, is that it is a living object that needs to be updated often. Sadly, we're involved in conflicts. We just ended a 20-year-long conflict in Afghanistan, and those people from our region who perished are not on there. So I think it's incumbent on our community to make sure new plaques are raised, because there's no one on there from Iraq um, and Afghanistan. And the Victory Arch is where they should be. The controversies surrounding monuments are amazing today. This monument is not as controversial as some of them. This monument covers everyone that served, black, white, yellow. It didn't really matter. If you were from here and you gave your life in an honorable fashion, your name went up on the arch. The arch is a symbol of Newport News's dedication and continual effort to maintain a strong military, because today, right next door to the Victory Arch, is going to be the Herbert Bateman Carrier Integration Center. In other words, how they study how to change aircraft carriers, etc. And if you walk through the Victory Arch, you can see that path right behind it. You can walk right down to the river, and it just, and you're treading where thousands of soldiers treaded before you. Those heroes of Bella Wood, those heroes of D-Day, those heroes of Kandahar, you name it, and they are represented by this arch. Of course, no one from Desert Storm marched through the arch. We had a ceremony up at the airport. Transportation's changed, but still, when you go to this arch, you will feel a solemnness that references, exactly those words of Woodrow Wilson. We are defending liberty for all. And that's what this Victory Arch is about. There are other monuments. This monument cheers the living and not the dead. It was so important for some people to get their husbands, their fathers, their cousins' names on this arch. They did so because they believed that those Americans serving their duty did so in an honorable way, and did so in a method that gave us something to remember, something to build our lives on. So the Newport News Victory Arch is downtown Newport News, intersection of West Avenue and Washington Avenue. It actually, when you go down that walkway, you're very close to where another battle took place, the battle where the CSS Virginia sank the USS Cumberland and USS Congress, proving the power of iron over wood. Thousands of ships have been built right down there. Thousands of men have gone overseas to serve our nation. So I used to speak often during the Veterans Day ceremony. And just remember, it used to be called Armistice Day. That was its World War I connection. That's why you would wear a red poppy in your lapel. However, it transformed into Veterans Day because it actually honors all veterans of all American wars. And it is a solemn thing. You know, my father served in the U.S. military, and I remember going down there with him when it was first dedicated. And that was kind of amazing. I don't remember much. I was 9 years old, but I do remember going, and the parade, it was just all so amazing. And so, in conclusion, I have to tell you that the Newport News Victory Arch was temporarily built. No one thought, everyone thought World War One would be the end to all wars. Sadly, human nature, evil policies rise up and cause more wars to be fought so we can help save the world for democracy. Those concepts have changed in many, many ways, but I will tell you right now, I urge you next November 11th to go to the Victory Arch and be there and understand the great sacrifices that have been given to you and me and everyone in America. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I'm coming, John.
Okay, my pleasure. I'm here.
Sorry, I'm getting set here. Sorry. Thank you, John. Would you advance the slides? There's a beautiful one from Newport News Tourism that is just a
Yeah,
stunning.
this shows veterans looking at it today. The Arch Plaza was repaired. The arch itself had been restored, so to speak. It's actually hollow. And so, you know, we found a time capsule in there and stuff like that. This is what it's all about. This arch was built for World War One, and that's a World War One doughboy. And it was built as such to honor these people who fought in the First World War. And every one of those doughboys thought that what they had done had changed the world. And so we'll go back to America and be happy, and Europe will take care of itself because they are doing democracy. It didn't happen that way. And yet this is a very stirring image. So, yeah.
Yes, and John Norman is suggesting that we mention the WGH Tiger Platoon, 1968, took their oath of service at the Victory Arch.
Yes, and many people did do that. They have retirement ceremonies there. So the Victory Arch is a multi-purpose item. They redid the plaza twice. They did a seat wall, and of course they put concrete down. The concrete, you know, scalded, and so they put down a new path. The Braxton Perkins Post number 25, the American Legion, really is the veterans organization that tries to really look out for the arch. And it is one of the most outstanding memorials in Newport News. You know, monuments, statues, cheer the living, they're no use for the dead. But yeah, it's amazing. I only touched on a little bit of the history, but I can tell you right now that I've been involved in many ceremonies there, and they all touch me in different ways. The first one I did, I actually quoted Robert Graves, "Look down on the slain of the war and promise you'll never forget." And so that was real stirring for me. And so what else would you like to know?
Well, Mary is asking, and I don't want you to tell me if you've been to the top of this thing. She says, did you ever get to go inside and can you see a great view from the top? Is there a staircase? How do you get to the top?
Yeah, there is. And I've been to the top,
Oh.
and, you know, it's one of those things you had to do. So yes, and they used to store all sorts of stuff in there. So we had to really clean it out. There were chairs from, I think, 1919 still in there, folding chairs. And when you, look at this picture, you can see one of the doors that leads into the Victory Arch and enables you to go up to the roof.
Okay.
So you can see how the roof is a flat roof inside part of the pediment. I think.
But the first one was flat on top, that aerial.
Yes, we're going to see that in just a second. I already read your mind. Where is it? So yes, it was, well, it was simply built. I mean, the Citizens Welcome Home Committee thought after that riot that they had to do something because their city changed forever. There they are.
Yeah. So you didn't do that.
No, I got up there. I did a little Broadway routine.
Okay.
Now, actually, I'm kind of scared of heights. So, you know, I got up there and go, wow. And, you know, left as quickly as I could.
Many of our guests at the museum will remember our Answering America's Call exhibit that was 2 years ago. And our exhibit team built a 2-scale replica of the Victory Arch where you entered into the exhibit, and it was just the most fabulous representation, and it made you feel like you were there. So
yes,
and
I have to tell you, the Virginia War Museum has a model of the arch that was used to put pennies and nickels and stuff like that in to help build the arch, rebuild the arch. So that was a great exhibit, because I can't tell you, Newport News is the town it is today because of the American military. And as a result of that, this arch shows our partnership and our caring for those who served.
Well, we hope you'll join us on November 19th. That's next Friday, this coming Friday. John will be back to the Civil War this time.
Yay.
Naval Intelligence, 1861-62. So that is at noon on the 19th. And go, John.
And this story about naval intelligence is very interesting because it gives us insights to how they didn't do intel well in 1862. And so I decided I had these people. I get requests for lectures all the time. And of course, I'm building my schedule for next year. I got this request for, what do you know about Civil War or intel? And so I developed this program, and I've written a blog about it, and which will be published soon, I think. So anyway, it is a very powerful story. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate everyone being here with us today to talk about such a tremendous landmark in Newport News. I urge you to either attend next year's ceremony or just go down there and marvel at the desire of our city to support those veterans and those sacrifices that they went through to make us live in a free society. So Anyway, thank you all very much, and I'll talk with you soon.